The subject of my presentation is about the design, of course, key elements and principles of design. Okay. Now, I have selected this image and I will tell you why at the end of my presentation. So what do I want to achieve in this presentation? First of all, I would like you to look critically into the elements and principles of design. That's what I'm doing. And I want you to expand their territories when possible. And then I would also like to show how these principles are used as tools for observation in my personal design journey. And I would also encourage people to develop their own design framework, approach, and ideas and philosophies, actually. So these are the purposes. First, I would like to start with key elements of design. So what are these key elements? Key elements of design are concrete entities with which we create, measure, define, describe, analyze, and understand design works. In other words, we design and express our ideas with key elements. These key elements are present in everyday design, regardless of kind, quality, skill, taste, or style. In other words, if you want to make a design, you need to use these key elements. So what are these key elements? Let's name them: line, color, light, texture, shape and form, material and tacit knowledge, and space, according to my experience. Well, you may expand this, you may add other things. Well, it's up to you, actually. I will come to this point. Line. What are lines? The connection of 2 points in space. It may be straight, curved, vertical, horizontal, diagonal, scalloped, dotted, dashed, broken, zigzag lines, and so on. But keep in mind, there are 2 kinds of lines: regular, geometric, and irregular, organic ones. Okay. And lines, as you see here in architecture, are the things we always come across. So you have to use these lines, not only express your ideas, but also to expose certain elements of your design. Well, this is Taipei 101 Tower in Taiwan, and I was impressed with the beauty of the structure and the composition of lines. This is the tower. It's called 101 Tower in Taiwan. But lights can also be part of lines. You can create lines by light. So the best example I came across is in a design museum in London. You can see the power of light and the power of line together, actually, in the sitting area. There are also lines of trains. It's very metaphorical, maybe an expression of mine. I took this photograph on top of the Shard building in London while looking at the trains coming and going to London Bridge. I was impressed with the lines of trains, actually. And as I mentioned before, there are also irregular organic lines and shapes and forms. So the Gaudi's La Sagrada Familia in Barcelona is an example of it. So don't limit yourself with the regular and normal lines, but there are other possibilities always open to you. Okay, you can see the power of an organic lines. Now, the second key elements that we will be looking at is the color. The color is described by hue. It's the name of the color. And the saturation, as you see here, it's the brightness and chroma, and the value, it changes from light to dark. So these are the elements we will be using. But the other terms are also rather useful. Hues, as you said, are pure colors. Tints are composed of hue and white. Tones, hue and gray, and shades, hue and black. That's how we achieve different variations of the same color. And how do you use this color? One of the best examples I came across is in London Design Fair in 2016. You can see the power of color and decoration here. It's enormous, right? Yes, I was struck by the combination that they have made. And I took this picture at the time. But color can be used in every field, of course. Here is an example in architecture, Copenhagen in Denmark. You can see how each building was identified with different colors, very properly, nicely, neatly, right? And the third element, key elements of design, is light. So we can use light in our design to express our ideas. Light is crucial for seeing, as we all know. It enables us to perceive shapes, forms, textures, spaces, color, and so on. Natural and artificial lights play different roles in our life, and they create shade and shadow, introducing depth to the perception. For instance, this one in Barcelona, when I came across this, the corridor, I was really mesmerized with the power of the light. Even the architecture is hidden. You don't see the walls, for instance. You see the corridor and this light and lines and the pattern that they created. Beautiful. Well, there are other lights as well, as you see here. It's very abstract looking, but it is a light actually. It's a Vitra showroom in Los Angeles, USA, designed by a friend of mine, Sevil Peach Gence. And you can see how she used lighting to fill the space with energy, actually. Or this is a very famous restaurant, another way of using lights. It's called Flash Restaurant in the 90s, opened in 1970s. You can see it's still surviving with this wonderful original decoration. Now, the other key element of design is texture. Texture. Materials, as well as natural and human-made objects, have visual and tactile qualities, which can be part of design. And one of the best examples, actually, is Louis Kahn's Indian Institute of Management in Ahmedabad, 1974. Probably you noticed I tried to make reference to some famous buildings. But I came across this wall in Taiwan, Tainan, the name of the city, 2016, and I was somehow captured by the beauty of this wall, the oldness and the combination of bricks. It's so powerful for me that I took this picture. It's a wonderful texture that you can use in your design. Or there are other well-known textures. This is from Museum of London, as you can see, or this one. So texture is an element of our design. Now, this is a different texture made out of, see stones, a kind of bas-relief sculptural things. It's from Mexico, Teotihuacan, Temple of Feathered Serpent. But again, when you look at it from a distance, you see the power of texture. Now, I want you to remember this figure, right? We will come to this later on in my presentation. Okay, this is another texture. It's Ramcoha's building, Casa de Música, Concert Hall, Porto, built in 2005. You see the hall, and around the hall there is a corridor, and it was covered by transparent material. It's like plexi, probably the glass kind of thing, and it is not straight, so it gives a different texture and color, and also transparency. And you listen to the orchestra over there performing or rehearsing. So this was another way of using texture, a transparent texture, you may call it. Of course, the key elements of design, one of the key elements of design are shape and forms. Shape is two and form is three-dimensional. So when we are talking about shapes, we are actually making reference to geometric forms like square, circle, triangle, rectangle, but it may be regular or irregular as well. Square, circles, these are geometric shapes. And cubes, spheres, cylinders, cones are forms, three-dimensional forms that we are using in our design. So when these things are applied to design, probably one of the most effective one is a Holocaust memorial in Berlin I came across. You can see the stones, huge stones. They are different one from each other. You can walk through and with shade and shadow, sometimes you are lost in it because they are higher than your height. And it gives a different kind of feeling, and it presents perfectly well the feeling of this memorial. Okay, or another way of using geometric elements, Serpentine Pavilion in London, and each year they invite well-known designers, artists, architects to build a structure. So this was one of them. And it's very clearly, you can see the power of geometric forms, actually. And or entire building, the one I mentioned before, the Shard in London, built by Renzo Piano, one of the new buildings, as you see today. It's a pure geometric form. Or another one, probably the previous one, and a very well-known one, is the Louvre Pyramid by I.M. in Paris, 1989. And you can see the relationship between old and new. So we can call this kind of unity, but at the same time, contrast. We will come to this vocabularies later on. Yes, but this is a totally different story. Antonio Gaudi's La Sagrada Familia in Barcelona. And this is an organic form. You can hardly define as a one single element. If you analyze it, of course, you can find some triangles, rectangles, maybe, but overall, it's beyond typical geometric comprehension, I would say, right? Okay, now when you look at this list, line, shape, color, form, texture, etc., you may see the same vocabulary used in not only in art, but also in design, in architecture. It's slightly changed. There are some emphasis sometimes on tone, sometimes time becomes an important thing for certain writers. Value is another one, or the rhythm. So it's up to you actually to develop your own elements of design. Well, and these key elements of design, how are used in a space, I would like to give this as a presentation. This was the kitchen designed by me, and visualization by Sıdık Erdoğan, a student of mine at that time, 2008. Now he is a well-known designer living in Berlin. You can see how successfully he rendered this kitchen design. When you analyze it, you see the light, you see the lines, you see the texture, and you see color, etc., etc. So that's how we benefit from the elements of design. Right, but there are other factors that play roles in forming, creating new works. Material and tacit knowledge, I would say. The materials, glass or let's say in that case ceramics, kiln, are taking shape according to the skills of the masters. So these are designs based on materials, which may not be necessarily require visual representation, plans and drawings prepared in advance, such as manual blown glass, ceramics and pottery and works. So the master has the idea in his mind, and it produces it. While producing the object, he uses this knowledge, we call it tacit knowledge, and give the shape he or she wants. For instance, this one, hair design. Yes, we see illustrations, but we never know how they achieve this. It's only the master's experience and the tacit knowledge that enable them to produce that sort of variety. So material and tacit knowledge are important elements. And for me, the seventh one is the space. Space is the area where things are born, exist, survive, move, and die. Its coexistence with time generates and constitutes various relationships, such as between man and his environment. But space is the subject of design as well as the object of it. Therefore, it's a very complicated issue, and I'm not going into this. Well, maybe in another different presentation we can look at. Just to inspire you a little bit, I will give you two contradictory space. One is from Taos, New Mexico, an open space. You can see the wilderness and the depth and the power of emptiness. And the other one is an enclosed space, well-known building, Roman building in Pantheon, in Rome, actually in Italy. And you can see the use of light and shape and geometry and all the other stuff that we mentioned so far. Now, in the second part, I will talk on principles of design. So what are the principles? First of all, principles of design are abstract concepts which tell us how to use the elements of design. So we have elements of design, and what will we do with these elements of design? Okay, for example, if elements of design are words, principles of designs are the grammar informing us how to bring these words together to make a sentence and a statement. So the sentence and statements are your own ideas. So we give you some words, we teach you how to use these words with certain rules or principles, and then it's entirely up to you to create your own statement, your own message, your own design. Okay, so what are these principles of design? Well, if we list them, proportion, scale, harmony, balance, unity, variety, contrast, rhythm, and emphasis are those I'm using. You may add one or two if you wish to later on. Okay, let's look at the proportion. Now, the relationship of parts of a design to each other and to the whole. Such as between large and small sizes of windows within a house, it says one of the resources. But here, the critical phrase is this: the relationship of parts of a design to each other and to the whole. So there is a whole, and this whole is composed of parts, and there is a relationship between these parts, and also there is a relationship between parts to the whole, right? That is the basic definition. But it goes back to this gentleman who mentioned maybe first time in history the relationship of parts of a design to each other and to the whole. Well, I don't expect you to recognize him, but maybe some of you already did. He is Jean-Jacques Rousseau, a famous philosopher, thinker, writer of enlightenment in France, right? Before, during the revolution. So what did he say? Well, actually, he published a dictionary of music. Dictionary of music. What's it to do with design? Yes, there is a chapter, a title, an item rather than, okay, dedicated to design. He describes what design is. And this dictionary was a year later translated into English in 1769. So here, under the item design, Jean-Jacques Rousseau writes the following sentence. Let's read it. It's not sufficient to compose beautiful airs. Well, airs means here the music and pleasing harmony. It's not sufficient. All this must be joined by a principal subject to which all the parts of the work must be connected, right? And by which it may become one. So he is actually talking about the unity, how these parts are coming together and connecting and forming the unity. Thus, unity should reign in every air, in the movement, in the character, the harmony, and the modulation. So he's talking about harmony, modulation, character, and all characteristics of design that we are using today. The whole must have reference to one general idea, which unites it. So it's a very, from my point of view, a contemporary, in one sense, intriguing definition of design. Okay, when we come to the reality, we see the ratio been used very technically, actually. It's called golden ratio. It goes back to ancient times. Sometimes it's called golden section, but sometimes it's called golden mean. So what is it? It is actually, imagine a rectangle, right? One part is 1, the other part is 1.618. It goes like that. So how do we achieve this? Well, you can see in this drawing, it's easy to achieve that proportion, actually. This is the golden section. And you look at this diagram, I try to split it into pieces. But every time you split into pieces, you come across another golden section, golden section, golden section, in such a way that when you link them together, you achieve a spiral. And the formula is down there. A R to B divided by A is equal to A divided by B, right? So this is the golden mean used in architecture in many places. Well, for instance, this one, Parthenon this time, not Pantheon, this is Parthenon in Athens, built in 447 BC, actually. And you can see how, when you analyze it, the golden section appears. Or another famous architect, this time from Italy during Renaissance period, Leon Battista Alberti and his famous Santa Maria Novella. So when you analyze it with geometric elements, you can see how proportions are used. Well, this has been used in several places. Look at this Georgian British house in the UK. And when you analyze it with the same proportions, you may face. So, you know, it gives a kind of security to design.